talk about entitlement / courtesy / responsibility. And that's really not a fair video for me, because that's 3 topics that I could disperse over 3 videos, but just like The Hobbit, I think we'll keep it to 1. Well, or not just like The Hobbit. Like The Hobbit should have done, we'll just keep it to 1. Okay? Anyway, I was recently told a story about a young man who works for a company, a small company, an independently owned company, in the local area. And he's worked for this company for, I'm going to say right around 2 years. And he had known the owners of this company for quite some time before he started working there, which is great. It's good to have a relationship with your superiors, with your boss, with the business owner. That always should help things. But a couple days ago, and it's a service providing company. You could call them contractors if you wanted to. So this young man, he's about, I think he's 24-ish. 23, between 23 and 25. One of those. And he was on the job the other day. We were traveling to the job, driving one of the company trucks. In said truck, and this is not a pickup truck, mind you. This is like a large, like a FedEx delivery truck. Not all the way up to a semi, but like a box truck, a bread truck, a food truck. We'll say that. We'll compare it to a food truck. So a rather large vehicle, and standing at a stop sign, decides to pull out, and in the process cuts off a lady in a sedan, commuter car. She wasn't too happy about this, and he either, well, come to find out later, he did notice what he had done. The lady followed him. And when he got to his job site, she got out and said, "Hey, you cut me off." And he, instead of turning around and responding, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize, I really shouldn't have done that," kind of owning up to it, because he did know what he had done. How do you know he knew what he had done? He instead responded, "Oh, I figured that's why you were following me." Typical, stereotypical millennial response, in my opinion. And again, I can say that because I am a millennial, technically. Which I think was just the rudest thing ever. And right at that moment, the person that's on the job with him should have stepped in, said, "Walk away, I'll finish this situation." But instead, that's not what happened. The lady got to the point where she started, being quite aggressive, because she was not being treated with disrespect by the person that had already wronged her. And it eventually came to her calling the business, because the number's on the side of the truck, the name of the business is on the side of the truck, and neither of those things is this young man's personal name or number. If they were, it would be different. I'm not excusing the fact that he was disrespectful. But if it was his company or his parents' company and his name was the one on the side of the truck, a little bit different story. A little bit. Just a little. So she calls the company, reports the situation. Kid comes back to the home base office area at the end of the day and is called in, written up for his infraction, and dismissed from work for 3 days without pay. A fair punishment, in my opinion. And again, this is from the story that I'm hearing. I was not a witness to it, but this is the way it was played out to me. But in the process of being documented for his attitude, he is walking through the office, slamming doors as he goes through them, and refusing to sign the paperwork that is the documentation, and just a number of things that shouldn't happen to any responsible adult. So there's responsibility, okay? Courtesy would have been to admit fault to the lady, regardless of what, because he did make comment of like what her car looked like, oh, she runs her own business, but that's what her car looks like, then what kind of business is it, I don't know. I wasn't there. But the point is, no matter what her car looks like, especially if it's in disrepair and not up to snuff with what you think a business owner's vehicle should look like, you should treat them with more respect, because clearly they're putting everything they have into their business, so much so that they can't keep up their personal vehicle the way they'd like to. That's how I'd view the situation. So, there's courtesy, there's responsibility. But through all this, through all the complaining and the whining and the not admitting fault, there's this sense of entitlement, which is just so prevalent in the millennial generation. Again, I'm in that generation, whether I want to be or not. I don't like being grouped with the millennial generation. It gives me a bad name. And I know plenty of other people that I grew up with who do not fit into that stereotype. But I still see it every day. I have people in my peer group that do act entitled and disrespectful and lack responsibility and courtesy. For goodness sake, our senior class t-shirts in high school had a checklist on the back. 4 things: expectations, values, courtesy, and then class of 2009 was at the bottom. And the only one that was checked was class of 2009. The meaning behind that essentially being that the class of 2009 has no expectations, has no values, and has no courtesy. Now, excuse me. I purchased the t-shirt because I wanted to be part of the group. It was a memory, as it were. But I do not and did not wear it in public because it was not an accurate reflection of my character. I got it for the events of homecoming week, and that was it. Now I wear it to work around the yard. If it still fits. I haven't seen it in a while. So, back to the story. This young man is dismissed from work for 3 days without pay, and I think that's a good punishment. I mean, hopefully it'll teach him, unless he's got a side job or something, because showing up to work hasn't been his highest priority lately. But to be guilty of an action and not take responsibility and not act kind and courteous to the person that you've wronged, those things just kind of build up into this sense of entitlement. Like, oh, well, it should have, it was my turn at the stop sign. I don't care if you're coming. I have somewhere to be. My destination is more important than yours. And I don't care if I put one or both of us in danger in the process. To me, that's entitlement. Like, my life deserves more credit than yours does. That's not fair. Nobody's life is more important than another. Sometimes I get a kick out of the, this is going to be a less than popular statement, but it's true. The baby on board signs that are in cars. My wife actually explained what she described as the true meaning of those a while back. Well, here's what I always thought they meant. There's a baby in here, so be extra careful around this vehicle. Why? Shouldn't we be extra careful around all vehicles because everybody's property and life and destination is important to them? Whether it's important to you or not, it's important to them, and you know how that feels because you have a life of your own too. So whether there's a baby on board or not a baby on board, whether there's a box full of chinchillas on board, you should be careful because it's just the right thing to do. You're driving a weapon, essentially. Your hands are in control of anywhere from a half-ton to, well, semi-trucks, which are multiple tons. You're driving a weapon. You have the ability to take someone's life with this vehicle if you so chose to, if you so choose to. It can be done, and it is done way too often. So treat it with respect and care in the same way you would treat a firearm or a knife. Or if you're Indiana Jones, a whip. Just be careful. Be respectful of the people around you. Yes, it gets frustrating. Sometimes you get caught up in your own path and wanting to get where you're going, but so what? Everybody feels that way. And the second you recognize that, the world becomes a much easier place to deal with. Now, Mary Jane explained to me that the baby on board sign is actually for if the vehicle is in an accident and that sign is displayed, then, like, if the car seat were thrown from the vehicle or something like that, then the officers or investigators or emergency personnel know to look for a child. Which means, if you're carrying a baby on board sign, take it down when the baby's not in the car. Because otherwise, the emergency responders are going to waste a lot of time looking for something that was never there in the first place. So, to sum up, millennials and, you know, the kids, the generations behind them, for whatever reason, have a sense of entitlement. Maybe it's because we grew up thinking that we were so special and that we could have anything we wanted if we just believed it was true. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, it's not true. You have to work. And in order to work well with others, you have to be responsible, you have to be courteous, and you have to suspend that feeling of entitlement that you have, because nothing is deserved and everything is earned. I'll see you this afternoon.